Sorry, year nine. I accidentally turned the recording off, so there's two of them. Okay, so back to it, guys. We just got to there, didn't we? So we said that actually there are some advantages to fish farming. So let me just recap them, just in case that we are cut short, because I'll be honest, I don't know exactly where it pulls. Bear with me, year nine. Once again, my computer's just going a little bit slow. And we're back. Right, so boys and girls, these are all advantages of fish farming. The main one that I just want to go over again, because I don't think I went over this one, so I think my video finished, was protected from predators and disease. Well, if they're all in a pen, they're all in this pen here, yeah, okay, then that means, imagine you've got all of these fish, yeah, well, there's going to be no predators, are there? Because they're all going to be the same species. Remember, they're all going to be, I don't know, let's say salmon. Yeah, salmon fish. And the reason why they want to rear salmon fish in this pen is because, you're going to get the salmon really big, you're going to feed them a lot, and they're not going to die from predators. They're also going to be probably free from disease because there's no other animal that's able to spread disease. So there's really, really good things about it. Okay. However, boys and girls, there are some disadvantages. So and what I want you to do is pause this video and have a little think, well, how is fish farming a disadvantage? What could possibly be an issue? So pause it for me and write down anything that you can think of. Okay, let's go through them. Right, boys and girls, I'm going to do it. Oh, anyways, I'm going to do a standard slide because I love a drawing, which you might have realised. Okay, so bear with me. Right, so guys, just to show you on the previous slide, they're pens. Okay, I think I've shown you it before. Now, what are some disadvantages to fish farming? Right, there's two main ones. And the main two are, in fact, get this down in your notes before I start explaining it. Fish farming causes problems because so many fish are kept in a relatively small space. So this is the bit that I want you to copy into your notes. Uneaten food and feces from the fish sinks to the bottom of the water. Okay, so get this bit down, boys and girls, year nine in your notes, just so you make sure that you've got it, and then I'm going to explain it. All right, so get that little sentence here. Oh, sorry. This sentence here, or a couple of sentences into your notes. So pause this and write that down for me. Okay, and now year nine, I'm going to explain it. Right, technically, we know that these are the pens. Now remember, there's a person, and what this person's doing is they're not flying, they'll be on like a ladder. Okay, and what they're going to do is, here's the water, is they're going to feed the fish. Now, great, you've got lots of the same fish all swimming around. I'm not going to go mad and draw loads, guys, because we haven't got the time. Okay, all right, but yeah. So what they do is, what happens is most of the fish will try and eat this food, but the issue is some of the food will naturally get uneaten. Yeah, so uneaten food starts to kind of stay down here. Sometimes the uneaten food can even get outside the ecosystem, because I don't know if you noticed, there's actually, it's like a net. There are tiny little holes on this net, so actually certain uneaten food could possibly get out. Now the problem is there is a whole ecosystem on the outside, isn't there? Yeah, there's loads of other fish and yeah, all sorts of herbivores and carnivores and fish, etc. Now, hopefully you're thinking, well, what's the problem with uneaten food? You're probably thinking, great, they can eat it. But actually, uneaten food and also feces, and what I mean by feces is pretty much, I know it's a bit disgusting, but the poo that they do pretty much from all the food they're eating, I do that as a circle, is all falling down, and also it's all coming out of here. And that is polluting the outside area. It's also polluting the inside. Yeah, it's causing water pollution pretty much, and that could actually harm the species, the community, the species on the outside. So it could impact species or biodiversity. Is everyone seeing why I'm putting that? It could impact biodiversity because it could cause species to wipe out or die because of the pollution that the uneaten food and the feces are causing. All right, so that's your one disadvantage. Your second one, boys and girls, is sometimes, sadly, these parasites do get on them. Now, hopefully you now know what a parasite is from the previous video, but a parasite, boys and girls, is anything that causes harm. They're not nice. But what these parasites do, because the fish are so close to each other, they jump and jump and jump. Then they end up infecting every single fish that's in this pen. Okay, so actually, in a weird way, even though they probably don't get much disease, sometimes parasites, you've got all this written down anyway, spread easily. And why do they spread easily, year 9? It's because they're very close together. And not only, boys and girls, sorry about my pen, not only does it spread together in the pen, sometimes these parasites can also jump out and start impacting the species on the outside of the pen, which again can affect a whole ecosystem, and it's a disadvantage. All right, so let's just read over them again. Ready? This can change conditions, uneaten food and feces, which may harm the wild organisms that live there. So it could affect the fish on the outside. Yeah, okay. Parasites and disease spread more easily between fish because they are very, very close together. All right, okay, so boys and girls, you should now be able to tell me some advantages and disadvantages of fish farming and how, as a human, are we impacting biodiversity? Right, year 9. So, what we're now going to move on to are 2 new key words. So, please write them down. There is the word native, which is also the same as indigenous. And there is the word non-indigenous. Okay, so please pause this video, year 9, and make sure you're writing that down. Okay, all right, so let's go through them. Right, so native, what does it mean? Right, first of all, native or indigenous, keyword indigenous, be careful with your spelling. Okay, that is an organism that has already been in that area. So for example, I'm native to the UK. I've always been in the UK. Or I'm not talking about whether I've gone on holiday. Let's pretend I've never gone on holiday. I'm native, I'm indigenous to the UK because I've always been in that country. However, if I decided after COVID, because it's tempting, that I moved to Spain, I would be considered non-Indigenous. People wouldn't say that, would they? They'd call me a tourist. But in biological terms, I'm non-Indigenous if I move to Spain because I would be an organism that has been introduced into an area and I wasn't always found there. Okay, does that kind of make sense? So, keywords, Indigenous is a species that's always been in that country. And non-Indigenous, boys and girls, is a species that has been introduced to a new area. They're non-Indigenous. Okay, we're going to go through an example. Right, guys, this is a bit of a case study, a bit like the Yellowstone Park. Right, if you didn't guess, that is a cane toad. They're actually quite ugly and they're quite horrible. All right, now it's from South Africa. You don't need to remember that year 9, I promise. But you do need to realise it was introduced to Australia. So keyword, what am I going to put? I'm going to say yes. That's non-indigenous. Be careful with your spelling. You better check mine. Yeah. All right, be careful. It's easy word because it's not spelled correctly. So the cane toad is non-indigenous because it's been introduced to a new area, and that new area is Australia. Okay. There's also the cane beetle, boys and girls. That's what it looks like. If you're interested. Now, the problem with the cane beetle was what it does is it eats sugarcane. Now, sugarcane, boys and girls, is a plant that Australians and sugarcane crops. Now, Australians relied on this sugarcane to get sugar from it. Okay. Now, the problem is, so imagine here's my sugarcane. Yeah. Problem is, this cane beetle ate all of the sugarcane. Now, can you imagine as a farmer, I've just I just planted loads of sugarcane. Yeah, I go to bed, I wake up, and all my sugarcane's gone. And the reason all my sugarcane's gone, boys and girls, is because the cane beetle is a bit of a pest. Okay, now what they did then was they introduced a cane toad to Australia because what do you reckon the cane toad did? The cane toad, ideally, was meant to reduce the number, it's just meant to be number, of cane beetle, so everyone was happy. Yeah. Unfortunately, though, boys and girls, the cane toad is poisonous. Its skin's quite poisonous, and other species that were trying to eat the cane toads all died. It killed them. it killed all the native animals, and actually the introduction of the cane toad reduced biodiversity, which is very annoying. So let me just recap that again, boys and girls. The cane toad is non-indigenous. The cane beetle was indigenous. It was native. It was meant to be in Australia. Now, what's the problem with the cane beetle? Well, it ate all the sugar cane, which was a pest, yeah? So what the Australians did was they thought, right, okay, let's introduce the cane toad from South Africa, the non-indigenous species. Great, what did the cane toad do? Ate the cane beetle, that's what we wanted. But sadly, boys and girls, the cane toad is poisonous. So what happened to all of the other native and indigenous animals? They all died, and therefore that reduced biodiversity. Okay, so that's a bit of a case study for you boys and girls about how the introduction of a non-indigenous and an indigenous species can cause problems. Okay, so boys and girls, can you pause it for me? And can you have a go at the following questions? Year 9, I assume that you're doing this in your exercise book, but you're also welcome to be doing this on a doc, to be sharing it to your teacher, or you can be self and peer marking it. Or not peer marking it, self marking it. Okay, I'm going to go for the answers. I'm assuming that was paused. Right, describe how fish are farmed. So you would, it's worth 2 marks, so please be careful here. You would say, in large numbers, yeah, that's your 1 mark. In a pen, or I would accept small space for 2 marks. Most people don't get the large numbers, boys and girls. Most people just say in a pen. So please correct that if you didn't get that correct. Explain how eating farm fish rather than wild fish can benefit the environment, because what's it doing? It's reducing wild fishing. And what can wild fishing do, boys and girls? Which affects biodiversity. And boys and girls, you might have gone into more detail about that, but for example, if imagine I'm a fisherman, and I remove a fish from the ecosystem, well, that could affect the secondary consumer, the primary consumer. It's going to have a big impact on a food web. Remember what I said, interdependence. So boys and girls, something along them lines, give yourself a tick. Okay, right, let's read this. Farmed fish are treated with pesticides to kill sea lice. Sea lice attach to the skin of a fish and feed on its blood. Oh, God. Large numbers of sea lice on a salmon can kill the fish. State the name of the biological relationship, or okay. Hopefully, you should have put it's parasitic. Boys and girls, why? Because the parasite benefits because it gets blood, food, nutrition. And what happened to the host? Host is harmed. And guys, if you went into more detail about the fact that, the salmon or the salmon gets killed or is harmed and the sea lice get blood and feed on its blood, then that's also great. Describe one risk to the environment of farm fishing. Great. We could say parasites being spread, disease, or we could also say uneaten food, species, going into the wild. Yeah, something like that. You'd write this a lot better, year 9. It's only because I'm using this pen. Right, muntjac deer are a small species of deer first brought to the UK in the early 20th century. They have since spread widely across the UK. What term describes the muntjac deer? Right, they were brought to the UK, so I would say they are non-indigenous. They were put into the UK. They didn't always belong there. So give yourself a tick. All right? So, boys and girls. Oh, what am I doing? Great stuff. I wish I hadn't done that. All right, guys, look, ready? They're kept in pens or ponds and fed and kept healthy until they are caught. I'll also accept boys and girls because I know this is also mark scheme worthy. The idea of large numbers. Yeah, okay. So next one, keyword, like I said earlier, the concept of biodiversity is maintained, the idea of food webs. All right, okay. Parasitic, sea louse benefits or sea lice benefits while the salmon is harmed, worth 2 marks. Pollution, do you remember I said food pellets? Uneaten food, you wouldn't expect to be putting on food pellets. and that could affect local food webs. Also, the idea of fish escaping. Yeah, if anyone thought of that, sometimes you need to be thinking outside the box. Okay, and the last one, sorry, is non-Indigenous. All right, so guys, actually, that's a really good one. We'll come back to that. Another disadvantage, year 9, you might want to add, yeah, is the idea of fish escaping. Oh, good. Think, what's the issue of fish escaping? Well, actually, I don't know, I'm waiting for a response there. No one's there. Actually, boys and girls, think if a fish was able to escape. The reason I didn't bring this one up earlier is because it's less likely to happen because the holes are pretty small. But if a fish was either able to jump out or escape, this could have a huge impact to the food web, couldn't it? Because this fish could either bring in a whole new prey or it could even be a predator, and that could affect a huge amount of the food web. So it could predate on an organism or it could be a prey for another organism. And that, remember the word interdependence, that's going to have a huge impact. All right, so boys and girls, look back through your answers and see if you can improve your terminology. That's one thing about biology, boys and girls. It's really, really important that you use words. However, be aware, people realise that you're not psychic, so any suitable explanation. It hasn't got to be word for word. Again, any suitable risk. These are just such as. All right, so boys and girls, if you put the idea of parasites, you'd have also got the mark. If you'd have said, not mentioned about food webs, what did I say? But I said reducing wild fishing, yeah, that would also be a mark because it's a benefit. All right, this is just a generic mark scheme, and there are examples that you might have put that you'd have got the answer, the mark to. Okay, guys, this is probably one of the most difficult things I'm going to teach you now. And I'm going to explain this whole picture. Now, how I'm going to explain it, year 9, is through drawing on the next slide. However, I'm then going to come back to this for you to be making notes. When you're watching what I'm teaching now on the slides, please do not feel that you need to be copying all of that down, or I'm going to be coming back to it. Okay, right, so escape. So, boys and girls, I'm going to explain a process called eutrophication. Okay, keyword, quite a difficult word actually, if I say so myself. And let's look. Right, keyword, eutrophication. And that simply, boys and girls, is where there are too many nutrients in a water system. Right, guys, I used to go to university. I know I'm old now, but I used to go to university in Mile End. It's Queen Mary University. And every time I walked past a lake that was always green in colour. So the surface of it was always green and it looked like it had algae at the top of the surface of the lake. Now, I now know, I probably did know then, but that's eutrophication. So that's a process where actually that water system in Mile End, where I was walking past every day, was eutrophicated. So that means there was too many nutrients in that water system. All right, so I'm going to explain how and why that happened. Okay, so let's go through it. Right, this is what happens. Now, this is a little bit of a silly picture because I'm making it be right close. But hopefully you're seeing that this is my water. Yeah? Quite close to the water, boys and girls, is a farm. Looks like the farm's on a hill, but it doesn't matter. Now, this farmer, apples, yeah, here's the farmer, right near the lake. Now, on a serious, realistic note, boys and girls, it wouldn't be so close to the lake, but I'm just trying to explain it as easy as possible for you. So, farmers, what they do is they're under a lot of pressure. Now, the reason why this farmer is under so much pressure is because Sainsbury's, Morrison's, Tesco, or whatever are calling up and saying, look, I need X amount of apples times 100 apples by tomorrow. And the weather's not looking great. We're in England. Yeah, it's absolutely pouring down and there's no sun. So he's only got 1, 2, 3, 4 apples. 5, let's give him a bit more. He's only got about 10 apples. So what he does, this farmer, and what all farmers do, boys and girls, is they spray okay, something called, it was a fertiliser. Okay, so fertiliser, boys and girls, just a spray. And inside that fertiliser are nitrates. That's the main thing I want you to know. Sometimes they might say nitrates and phosphates. Okay, fair enough. But in general, it's nitrates. That's the one that I really need us to remember. Now, nitrates, boys and girls, nitrogen, or a form of nitrogen, I should say, allow growth of the plant. Growth of plant. So let's put this into normal language. The farmer at this present moment, boys and girls, is getting phone calls asking for more apples. Why is the plant not growing, year 9? Because it's not got great weather conditions. Okay, so what he does is he sprays fertiliser, and inside that fertiliser, boys and girls, is nitrates and phosphates. Now, let me just show you that. So this fertiliser's been sprayed, and this fertiliser, boys and girls, would go into the roots, and it would allow it to grow quicker. So you're going to get more apples. However, not all of the nitrates, boys and girls, get sucked up by or gets absorbed by the roots. So I'm going to put not all nitrates. I'm going to show you the other slide in a minute. Absorbed by roots. Okay, so not all nitrates are absorbed by the roots, which is a bit of an issue. Okay, however, not a problem, because the farmer don't really care. All he knows is that this plant is growing, and that's all he cares about. Now, what happens, boys and girls, is when it rains, so number 3, hopefully you can guess that the excess nitrogen, I'm just going to put N and P, that's all right, go into water system. Okay, so look, that N and P wash off into the water system. I'm just going to put N. I'm just going to put N if that's okay. But there's also phosphates. I'm just going to put N. Okay, sorry about my pen. It's going very dodgy. All right, now what I need you to get is, what do we know nitrates are able to do? Year 9. Okay, what nitrates are able to do is they're able to cause growth. Now, sadly, what happens is these nitrates actually begin to cause a form of algae. Now, algae is like a single-celled organism, but it's like a bit like a green plant. Now, that algae, because there's nitrates in it, is now going to start growing more. So look, it starts growing on the surface more. Do we see that? It's like a green plant. It's called algae. Okay, just for now. Yeah. It takes part in photosynthesis. Now, this algae is starting to really, really grow. Why is it growing, boys and girls? Because there's nitrates that have gone into the water system. Right. I've now got lots of plant growth. Plant slash. Good job you're not writing from this because you can't see it. Algae growth. However, there would be also plants at the bottom here. Hopefully, you're going to then realise, okay, problem, because the plants that are in the water system, so let me get another colour, are now not going to be able to access, hopefully you realise, any form of sunlight. So look, sorry, I can't see my pen, I'm struggling at the moment. Right, there it is. Okay, all the sunlight that needs to get through is not going to be able to pass through. So hopefully you're then thinking, right, okay, so if the sunlight's not going through because of the algae blocking it, then that means that these plants cannot photosynthesize. Right, boys and girls, if a plant can't photosynthesize, it can't grow. So what happens is they die. Now, not only does photosynthesis make glucose for the plant, okay, photosynthesis also makes oxygen. It produces a gas called oxygen. So because photosynthesis is not happening, the oxygen levels are going quite down. They're getting lower and lower in this water system. Because photosynthesis is not happening, they're dying. Now, not only are you getting dead plants, you also get these microorganisms. It looks like a spider, but these microorganisms, boys and girls. So I'm going to write this, hopefully you can see it. Oh, this pen's getting on my nerves. Sorry guys, I'm just going to try again. That's it. No, it's not working for me, year 9, typical. So these microorganisms Sorry about my writing, I'm trying to, yeah. Now what these microorganisms are, year 9, we call them decomposers. Now decomposers, boys and girls, are any form of organism that eat dead material. Okay, sorry, you're just going to have to listen to me because my pen's playing up, boys and girls. Now, let me repeat that. The plants have died. I'll go through this again, don't worry. Okay, and now there's microorganisms, there's decomposers that has now come along because there's dead material in this lake. Now, when these decomposers start nibbling and eating on these dead plants, naturally, these microorganisms are respiring. Now, in our normal language, year 9, at your age, all you need to know is, I know it's not the same, you should have done this in year 8, but it's a process that happens in your body, okay, and it uses oxygen. So they're respiring, and when they're nibbling and respiring, they use up oxygen. They're taking in oxygen. So that means the level of oxygen now is really, really low, okay? A fish then comes along, boys and girls, and what happens to the fish because of the oxygen levels? The fish suffocate. And the reason they suffocate, year 9, is because there is a lack of oxygen in that water system because of the eutrophication of too many nutrients being put in there. Okay, so boys and girls, I'm going to start that again, and then we're going to look at this one. All right, if you understood it the first time, great. I'm hoping, guys, that my pen is going to be a little bit more friendly to me, and I'm going to go a little bit quicker this time. So we're looking at the process of eutrophication. Remember, year 9, eutrophication is when too many nutrients go into a water system. So I'm going to go back, but I'm going to do it a bit quicker this time. Ready? Here's the land. Here's the water. Okay, remember, farm. I'm going to do this quite quickly. The farmer is not making enough apples or vegetation, whatever he needs to make. So what he does is he sprays fertilizer. That's our first key word I'm looking for. Fertilizers, boys and girls, contains nitrates and phosphates. Now, I'm going to put a little side note. Nitrates allow the plants to grow, which they want. So ready? You spray, the nitrates go in, the plant grows. Everyone's happy. However, not all of the nitrates go into the plant, so it rains, and hopefully you realise that when it rains, the nitrates and the phosphates wash into the water. So I'm just going to put, because this is where it went wrong really, NP, NP, to give you an idea they're there. Right, boys and girls, sadly, because there's now lots of nitrates inside the water, what does that cause the surface plants to start doing? Well, the algae. Right, it then causes the surface plants, boys and girls. Every time I change colour, I lose it. Right. It then causes the surface plants to start growing more here on the surface. Everyone following me? So that's your next point. Ready? Surface plants. I'm just going to put /algae grow. Okay, right, hopefully you'll then realise, and more if they're growing, the plants here, okay, the sunlight is now blocked. Sunlight can't get through. So that means the plants underneath cannot photosynthesize. Now, boys and girls, if you didn't know this, but you should from last year really, photosynthesis makes oxygen. So that means the oxygen levels, I'm just going to put here, are about that low, O2. They're quite low at the moment, which is bad. So what's going to happen to a plant that can't photosynthesize? Well, it's going to die. Yeah, okay, because they're not photosynthesizing. Last thing that happens, boys and girls, is you get these microorganisms called decomposers. So decomposers, like little microorganisms called decomposers. Hopefully my writing's better this time. Yeah, microorganisms, that's just an organism you can't see with the naked eye. And decomposers absolutely love dead material. They eat dead material. Now, boys and girls, when these bugs and these microorganisms are eating the dead material, they are taking part in a process called respiration, which requires oxygen. It's going wrong again. They use oxygen. It's pretty much like breathing, but it's not the same. So be careful. When you're a bit older, you understand that. It uses oxygen. That means the oxygen levels are really, really low now. Fish comes along, boys and girls, dies, because the fish now suffocate. And the reason they suffocate, boys and girls, is because of the lack of oxygen. It's called eutrophication. So should we go back to the other stuff? So let's have a look. Eutrophication is the addition of many nutrients to an ecosystem. For example, this can happen when too much fertilizer is added to a field. Fertilizers help plants grow better and it allows them to grow bigger. Yeah? This is how it happens. It's a form of pollution, boys and girls, because too much of something's in the water system. So, ready? Fertilizer is added. That's what I drew. Heavy rain washes fertilizer off. Obviously, this picture's a lot more sophisticated because there's actually a water system going into the large system. That means there's now nitrates and phosphates now go into the water. Yeah? The ones that are not taken up by the plants are now going in here. Do we see? They encourage plants and algae to grow rapidly on the surface. You see what I was trying to explain earlier? Yeah? Number 5, surface plants block sunlight. So plants underneath die, stopping oxygen production through photosynthesis because photosynthesis is stopped. Okay? This brings bacteria, which we now know, if you can remember, are called decomposers. Decomposers, boys and girls, then break down dead material, they increase in number, and when they're eating dead stuff, boys and girls, they use up the oxygen. This causes any aquatic animal, such as a fish, to die due to the lack of oxygen, and overall the oxygen concentration decreases. All right, so year 9, I completely understand why you don't want to use my pictures I'm drawing because my pen's not even working very well. But make sure you pause that and make sure you understand that in a flow chart. Okay, boys and girls, quick progress check. I want you to pause this, please, and can you have a go at the following? You know, I'm a little bit conscious this video is quite long, so I'm not going to go through the answers to these, but your teacher on your live lesson can do that. Okay, so please have a go at the following questions based on what you understood from eutrophication, and well done, year 9.